Alright, it's Alex Anist with another video on some basics of guitar. I'm really going through some stuff that's mainly for beginners, but you know, anybody can use to review this stuff. So today I'm going to go over the first position C scale. If you saw my video about the musical alphabet, all I'm doing is I'm going to play every natural note in the first position of the guitar. So what that means is I'm going to use my first finger every time I play the first fret, and I'm going to use my second finger every time I play the second, and my third finger every time I play the third. I'm not going to use my pinky because it's not needed, and I'm going to use open strings. So first I'll demonstrate it. It looks like this. And I started on a low E. I know I said it's a C scale. It's also an A minor scale. Maybe at some point I'll post a video about scales and how they work. But for now, the logic behind starting the scale on E is that's the lowest note that we can use. And even if we're playing in the key of C, melodies don't usually start and end on the root note of a scale. So for example, if you're playing Amazing Grace in the key of C, it starts on a G. Or it could be starting on a G down here. So the root of a scale is important in trying to figure out the tonality, but it's not important in terms of starting or ending a scale fingering on the guitar. If you want to hear this scale like a C scale, which a lot of you might want to do because hopefully your ear is part of what's happening when you're figuring stuff out musically. It should be the main thing that's happening. So, you can play the C note first. And then it'll sound like a C scale to you, which is good. And you could start with A and it'll sound like an A minor scale. And if you know all your modes, you start on D and it'll sound like a D Dorian scale. If you don't know what I'm talking about with modes, that's fine. It's not really pertinent. All right. So if you know your musical alphabet, we're just going to play the first three notes on every string. Except for the G string, we're only going to play two notes. So again, I'm going to demonstrate this. I'm going to start with open E, and then F with my first finger on the first fret, and then G with my third finger on the third fret. Open A, second fret B, third fret C. Open D, second fret E, third fret F, open G, second fret A, and we only need those two notes because our next note is open B, first fret C, third fret D, and then open E, first fret F, third fret G. Now, when you play this, if you're starting out, all downstrokes. And so on. And learn it forwards and learn it backwards. And so on. Make sure you know the name of the note you're playing and know what it sounds like. Take the time to do this slowly. Now, if you're slightly more advanced, alternate picking. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and so on. Or you can do a directional picking, or, well, that's what I've always called it. I know other people who call it symmetrical picking. There's a bunch of names for this. Basically, you're going to continue in the direction you were going. So it doesn't matter how I start. When I go to a higher string, I'll start with a downstroke. So it's going to be down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down. And on the way back down, I'll start every string with an upstroke. Okay. So that's 3 ways to pick, but if you're just learning how to play the first position C scale, you're not going to be able to concentrate on your right hand and your left hand at the same time. So it's quite important actually to just focus on what you're actually practicing. Like in any context, you always want to know what you're practicing. If you're practicing the first position C scale, then just do it with all downstrokes until you've memorized it, ascending and descending. And then once this left-hand thing is second nature, then focus on the right hand. But if when you start focusing on the right hand, the scale falls apart, that means you don't know the scale well enough to be focusing on alternate picking or symmetrical picking. So then go back and learn the scale better and take your time. The things that you could potentially be practicing with a scale, like this first position C scale, are you could be memorizing the shape and practicing the coordination between your right and left hand. You could be memorizing the names of the notes. If you're doing that, you're going to be playing really slowly. So you're not going to be practicing right and left coordination. You could be practicing for right hand speed, assuming that you know the scale really well. You could be using the scale for improvising. I think that's a great way to practice improvising, is just to play a scale and then start playing around with the scale. So there's a lot of things you could be potentially practicing when you're using a scale, any scale. So just know what it is that you're practicing. And if you're starting out, what you're practicing is memorizing the shape. I'm going to continue to do videos. I'll show you this. If you're a student of mine, you probably have access to this. You definitely have access to it. But right here is the diagram for the first position C scale. If you don't know how to read a scale diagram, maybe just post in the comments, and I will at some point maybe do a video on how to read a scale diagram. I'm sure there's a lot of information online about that. All right, so that's all I've got to say on this topic of the first position C scale. If there's other things you want to learn about, also message me or leave a comment. I need to make a lot of videos, so I'll be happy to make one answering whatever question about music you might have. Thanks, and have a great day, and stay home.